Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Alright, without further ado, let us dive straight into the recap of Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy Part 14. The story begins with Hibiki standing alone in the corridor after Makoto leaves. In that silence, her thoughts spin rapidly, forcing her to face one bitter truth. Makoto is far more dangerous than the goddess. It is not because Makoto is evil, but because of his indifference toward the millions of Limia citizens who could die because of the war. For Hibiki, such indifference is more terrifying than any power. At this point, Hibiki feels that the world has become incredibly complicated. The weight of the problems piling up makes her constantly reflect on the best step she can take. She regrets that Makoto does not have any intention of making the world a better place. Deep inside, Hibiki thinks that if Makoto had such an ambition, even if Makoto wished to become a god, she would support him as long as his goal was for the good of the world. However, the reality is that Makoto does not have that desire at all. Hibiki once hoped that Makoto would at least want to create a nation. If that happened, any race, including the demon race, would definitely be more cautious. However, once again, Makoto has no intention of doing that. In truth, Hibiki understands that the best approach would be to win Makoto's heart. However, she refuses that method because the hatred she carries toward the demon race, especially toward Io, is far too deep ever since her friend was killed. She feels that only by fulfilling that revenge will she be at peace again. However, Makoto's words continue to haunt her mind. Makoto once said that if the goddess vanished, he had a place where he could temporarily take shelter. For Hibiki, that statement does not make any sense. If the goddess disappears, the world will certainly fall into chaos and war will erupt everywhere. There would be no such thing as a safe place. From this point, Hibiki starts to draw a conclusion. Makoto must have a secret place that is far safer than the outside world. A place that will not be swallowed by the chaos. While thinking about that, Hibiki remembers the rumor of the Mirage City near Tsige. Hibiki begins to suspect that Makoto actually lives there. She also considers the teleportation ability of the Kuzunoha company. In her opinion, they must be capable of limitless teleportation. The reason they claimed their device was broken is nothing but a cover. The more she thinks about it, the more obvious it becomes that they are hiding something. After spending some time in silence to calm herself, Hibiki finally strengthens her resolve. She decides that she will meet Chia to discuss the next step. Meanwhile, far above the castle tower that is rarely visited by anyone, a figure has been observing everything. Mio, who has been eavesdropping on her master's conversation from the beginning, smiles in satisfaction. Her smile widens until her eyes narrow, radiating a sense of relief. In Mio's eyes, the failure of the negotiation between Makoto and Hibiki is the best possible outcome. She knows very well that Makoto and Hibiki are like water and oil. They will never mix. According to Mio, Hibiki is a naive girl who believes that hard work will always lead to something good. An arrogant mindset from someone blessed with talent who has never known what it feels like to be weak. On the other hand, Makoto does not care about grand matters such as the future of the world or peace between races. Her master only cares about what is directly in front of him. That fact makes Mio feel safe. With this, Makoto will not be dragged into the foolish war of humanity, and she even thinks it is fine if humans and demons destroy each other as long as they do not disturb her master. Meanwhile, as Makoto is about to enter his room, he is surprised to see Chia already waiting for him in front of the door. Chia bows deeply, almost 90 degrees, expressing her apology for the incident when she fainted earlier. Makoto tries to calm her, thinking that the girl was simply exhausted. However, Chia immediately explains that the cause was not physical, but something she saw by using her eye ability. With a hesitant yet firm voice, Chia begins to reveal what she witnessed when she looked at the members of Makoto's party. She explains that when she looked at Lime, she saw a figure depicted as a large tree with a young dragon perched on top of it. Then she describes how Mio appeared as a terrifying black spider monster, and how from that creature there was a massive chain that extended toward Makoto. The most shocking part of Chia's vision is when she describes how she saw Makoto himself. In her view, Makoto appeared as a faceless white figure, a form that looked calm yet alien at the same time. However, What made Chia beg was the small crack visible on that figure's body, a crack that revealed something truly horrifying behind it. Chia pleads with Makoto to never release that terrifying being into the world, no matter what happens. Makoto can only remain silent. He feels confused, uncomfortable, and slightly offended that he is being described as something frightening. After all, he does not even know what Chia is talking about. Even so, he promises that he will do his best to keep whatever is inside him from erupting outward. Chia, who has begun to calm down, then brings up the topic of religion and belief. But Makoto answers honestly that he is not interested in such things. For him, the only philosophy he truly believes in is the one he learned from archery. Determine your target, act with your own hands, and remain straight like a bow. A simple principle, yet one that has become the foundation of his life. He is the type of person who, once he has made a decision, will carry it out to the very end. That answer makes Chia feel slightly more at ease. After taking a deep breath, she finally excuses herself, leaving Makoto with one lingering question. What exactly is the creature that resides within him? Upon entering the room, Makoto is greeted by Lime. They talk briefly about Chia's visit, but the conversation does not last long. After that, Makoto lies down on the bed. His thoughts wander to how complicated Limia has become. He realizes that he is not like Hibiki, who thinks about the future of the world. He is simply a merchant who wants to protect the people around him. Makoto only wants to return to Asura, meet Tomoe and Shiki, and afterward, reveal his presence in Kalenon as the ruler of that land. However, before any of that can happen, fatigue finally overwhelms him, causing Makoto to fall asleep instantly. The scene then shifts to the southern region of the Kingdom of Limia, specifically to the residence of the Hopelace noble family. That day, the atmosphere inside the private chamber of the family head, Algorio Hopelace, is extremely tense and heavy. Prince Joshua arrives for a visit, and without any small talk, she immediately states the purpose of her arrival. Algorio has to double-check his hearing because he cannot believe what he just heard. With a calm yet sharp voice, Joshua repeats her intention. She has come to demand that Algorio retire immediately from his position as the head of the Hopelace family. Her reason is very clear. Joshua accuses Algorio of violating the kingdom's orders and of being suspected of interfering with the Kuzunoha company while they were in Limia. She also brings up the issue of the Hopeless family's excessive and non-transparent financial spending. Algorio denies it, claiming that he never touched Kuzunoha and that the funds were used to handle various issues in the Academy City. He even insists that he was fully responsible for everything that happened there. However, Joshua responds coldly. She tells Algorio to stop lying, because she already has evidence proving that he was involved in the attempted assault against Kuzunoha. Still refusing to give in, Algorio rejects the idea of retiring. With a threatening tone, he says that he knows a great secret about Joshua. However, before he can reveal it, Joshua cuts him off and informs him that Algorio's child is currently severely injured and is being treated by the kingdom. Hearing that, Algorio falls silent. However, even though he is shaken, he still decides to play his final card. He deliberately addresses Joshua not as prince, but as princess. In an instant, the atmosphere becomes even more ominous. Algorio reveals that Joshua is actually a woman, and even worse, she is an illegitimate child born from the king's affair with a commoner. He threatens that the people will never accept a liar who disguises herself as a prince. He offers a deal. Allow him to maintain his authority until the time is right, and he will take that secret to the grave. Joshua's reaction, however, is completely unexpected. Instead of panicking, she laughs. A light, almost carefree laugh, as if she genuinely considers the threat meaningless. Joshua then reverses the threat with cold and sharp logic. She acknowledges everything Algorio mentioned, that she is a woman and that her blood is not entirely noble. However, during a war against the demon race, a scandal like that means nothing. If the secret is exposed, enemy nations will only exploit it to weaken Limia. The kingdom will fall into chaos, and that chaos will place Algorio in an even worse position. Joshua adds that she has already planned to reveal her true identity. She intends to open the path for Breda to become king and to create the space for hero Hibiki to lead the country's reformation. In other words, she is already prepared to sacrifice herself for the future of Limia. Hearing all of this, Algorio finally realizes his lateness and his foolishness. When he understands that every card he holds has become worthless, he collapses in defeat. In the end, Algorio can only surrender. After the matter with the Hopelace family is settled, Joshua immediately conducts a meeting with Hibiki. In that meeting, she informs Hibiki that Algorio will finally retire. Hearing this, Hibiki only nods quietly because that decision aligns perfectly with her initial plan. She intends to remove nobles whose goals do not align with hers and replace them with individuals whose ideals are in the same frequency. According to Hibiki, reformation can only succeed if the leading noble positions are replaced with new faces capable of guiding the country toward a better future. From there, the discussion continues toward the next strategic steps. The two of them think about various ways to weaken the influence of the conservative nobles who still cling tightly to their outdated mindset. To create the ideal Limia, all such political obstacles must be removed. Their conversation then flows into the most sensitive plan: how to ensure that the Hopelace family truly submits and can never rise again. Joshua begins to explain her cunning plan, not through violence, but through the heart of Algorio's eldest son. She intends to take advantage of the young man's extremely fragile mental and physical state due to his severe injuries. Joshua has prepared 6 beautiful nurses from respectable families, each one selected based on the eldest Hopelace son's personal preferences. However, the true core of the plan lies in another woman, a young widow, 23 years old, the second daughter of a low-ranking noble family. Hibiki initially questions this choice, because being a widow is usually a major obstacle in noble society. However, Joshua simply smiles with confidence. That woman possesses something far more valuable than status: a miraculous healing medicine from the Kuzunoha company, capable of restoring even a lost arm. Joshua personally purchased the medicine and entrusted it to the widow, creating a scenario where she would appear as a miraculous savior when the eldest son recovers through her hands. Through this, the Hopelace family will become bound by a deep sense of gratitude. In her mind, Joshua had briefly considered another option, using Iberia, Makoto's student who is also Algorio's illegitimate daughter, to destroy the family from the inside. However, the risk was far too great, especially because it involved Makoto, and the potential conflict with other nations made her abandon the idea entirely. As the meeting approaches its end, their conversation shifts to something more personal. Hibiki, impressed by Joshua's exceptional competence, suggests that Joshua herself should become queen. However, Joshua immediately refuses. She knows that she does not possess the natural charisma of a great ruler. In her opinion, that charisma belongs to Breda, her younger sibling, and even more so, to Hibiki herself. With a serious tone, Joshua expresses her vision for the future. The ideal Limia is a Limia where Breda becomes king, while Hibiki stands as the queen in the hearts of the people. Hibiki tries to lighten the mood with a joke, but Joshua is not joking at all. She is ready to support everything from behind the scenes. Hibiki can only ask for time to think. Some time passes. At this moment, Makoto, Mio, and Lime are traveling toward the Kalenon region because their agreement with Limia has concluded. During the journey, Makoto's thoughts drift back to the farewell moment at Limia's border. He still feels that the send-off from Hibiki, Chia, and Prince Joshua was slightly excessive. However, he understands that they were also using that moment for political purposes. One thing that continues to bother him is Chia's attitude. The young priestess stared at him with a stiff and frightened expression from beginning to end, barely ever leaving Hibiki's side. It was very different from the calm attitude shown by Hibiki and Joshua, who were still able to remain relaxed. In short, Makoto's group arrives at the Adventurer Guild in Kalenon. Makoto comes to receive reports about the condition of the region, while also asking about the whereabouts of Eva and Ruria. After receiving information from the guild staff, Makoto, Mio, and Lime immediately head toward their location. When they meet, Makoto immediately notices Eva's face, which looks extremely haggard and exhausted. Eva admits that she is lacking money, lacking manpower, and is under severe stress thinking about how to rebuild Kalenon in the middle of the harsh winter season. Makoto understands her situation. During winter, farming is an impossible dream because the entire land is covered in snow. However, the greatest problem is not that. Eva explains that the 3 major rivers in Kalenon have all completely frozen, making irrigation impossible. They have tried various methods, but no solution has worked so far. Makoto reflects for a moment, then remembers a Japanese method that uses natural hot springs to overcome frozen rivers. He begins to consider the possibility that a hot spring might exist somewhere around Kalenon. Makoto promises that he will search for such a hot spring. If he succeeds, it will become the first step in restoring Kalenon. To ensure that his plan is accurate, Makoto decides to investigate the hot springs in the country of Laurel first, as a reference, before he begins searching in Kalenon. With that, they part ways, and Makoto begins a new step in searching for a solution for the region. So, that is the recap of Part 14 from Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy.